I want to welcome everybody to this evening to the presentation on the new advanced Moore balance brace. And I'd like to introduce Dr. Jonathan Moore, podiatrist with Upper Line Health in Kentucky, and Jason Krause, a co-founder of Orthotica. I'd really like to turn it over to you, Jason, and you set the stage for where we're going.
Thanks, Rich. Tonight's presentation that Dr. Moore will be giving is really very product focused. If you've never seen or been exposed to the Moore balance brace, I think you'll get a lot of benefit from it. But for those that have been involved with using custom-made ankle-foot orthoses as part of a treatment protocol for preventing falls or improving balance, the changes that Dr. Moore and Orthotica collaborated together over the last year or so has really taken the balance brace to a new level. The previous iteration was launched commercially in 2010. I was involved in a lot of its commercial activities from 2011 to 2019. I think during that time, manufactured upwards of about 30 or 40,000 braces, roughly speaking. So we've got a lot of experience, a lot of clinicians, and a lot of patients. And I think Dr. Moore has taken all of that over the last year or two and really set out to see what can be improved. And I think that's really the foundation for tonight's presentation. This should take about 20, 25, 30 minutes for Dr. Moore to go through the new features and how they're working in his clinic. And then we're going to leave a lot of time tonight for questions or any other feedback that you folks would like to engage us in. So with that, Dr. Moore, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, very good. I'm going to get us all set here. Good evening, everyone. I too am seeing some names that I'm familiar with, and I'm really grateful for all of you joining on this call. Just confirming everything look good, guys. Everything on the screen well?
Perfect. All right,
Okay,
Dr. Moore, we'll see you soon.
All right, Rich. Take care, man. So I'm really thrilled to be able to talk about this because this has been really something that it's been part of my life for a lot of years. 2009 is when the first iteration of this product came out, and it came out with excitement, but also some hesitation. And I think that because of a lot of studies that have been done over the years, because of the wide scale use across the country, I think a lot of the questions and doubts and hesitations have, for the most part, been answered and so I'm really thrilled to have a chance to talk about the product itself, why it works, why it's designed the way it is. And so again, thank you so much for at least demonstrating the desire to want to do something to help your patients for this problem. This is what I'm going to cover. It's going to be quick. It's going to be, I'm going to give a little bit of background for those that may not have an understanding of kind of where this all starts from, and maybe again some of the studies that have been done, but basically, for some, it may be a leap or for some there's maybe a disconnect or hesitation of understanding why an AFO works for balance, and of course what we've done at Orthotica, which is really awesome, is we've created a program. We're not out promoting just a brace. We're promoting healthy lifestyles. We're promoting physical therapy. We're promoting proper footwear. And this image that you see here is a poster that's been produced by Orthotica that I have in all of my offices, all my treatment rooms, and it just generates a lot of discussion. And so this is not just selling something. This is not just making money. This is about providing tools that I think really change people's lives and help them be better balanced. And I hope that you'll see that when you see some of the conversations and some of the dialogue we have with patients. This was the first really big study that came out in gerontology that in essence demonstrated the validity of what I've had been experiencing in clinic for many years, and what several had been experiencing. Asking the question, can something like this improve mobility, reduce risk of falling? And in short, and that without going into the detail of these studies, I encourage you to read the study. But what we demonstrated was that using this AFO, it not only, of course, reduced center of mass sway, which is postural sway, but it did so really over a period of time. So within the AFO intervention group that was studied, the fall scale was reduced significantly, and there was an increasing trend towards the number of walking bouts. So what you see is that an AFO plus a good shoe reduces the fear of falling, reduces center of basically postural sway, and stabilizes people. And ultimately, that's what I, using language that my patients can understand, my goal is to make you more steady, improve your stability, allow you to walk with more confidence, with less fear. So that's what this study did. And what we're in essence trying to do is we're trying to enhance proprioception. And studies over and over again have demonstrated that AFOs properly designed can stabilize the ankle, improve center of mass, and of course, ankle stabilization especially is so vital for balance and functional activities. So, and this is the coup de grace of what we accomplished through the Falls Council. We produced a paper that was published in AP journal, the Journal of American Podiatric Medical Association, demonstrating, of course, that lower extremity risk factors were vital and key for fall prevention. And among those things that we determined was that AFOs, again, can be a vital part of improving the risk factors that are related to the foot and ankle. And all of you that are on this call have probably some connection to the foot and ankle, whether you're a CPED or whether you're an orthotist or whether you're a podiatrist. What we understand mechanics, we understand biomechanics, we understand that in order to improve balance, you've got to enhance proprioception. We understand that if there's an abnormal gait, that AFOs can be a big part of improving that. So this is the study that was done. I encourage you to read it. And what we determined, of course, was that reduced foot strength, decreased flexibility, foot pain, poor footwear, all equate to and reduced worse gait, poor balance, ultimately leading to an increased risk of falling. Now, if you're not convinced that we as podiatric physicians or orthotists or CPEDs don't have a role in fall prevention, then you just really haven't been reading, because there are so many studies, there's so many articles, and these are just a few that highlight, even in the allopathic world, even in the MD world, podiatrists are again oftentimes mentioned as important providers of services related to foot pain, orthotics, proper footwear, and again reducing some of those lower extremity risk factors. So, in foot and ankle problems, 1 in 3 adults have foot and ankle problems, and there's a whole host of them that we talk about that can be addressed by us as foot and ankle providers, but really all those risk factors come down to watching patients walk. And I show this video just to demonstrate the fact that if you just watch patients walk,
why we're going to try to help
you can gather, again, right there, just instability, weakness. She's not using her cane properly. Again, just taking the time to watch patients walk and identifying that there's abnormal gait can be a critical piece of just understanding that, we have a role. This is my office, and it's a chain of people using assistive devices, and your office is probably the same. You'd be shocked at how many patients really could benefit from just a balanced assessment and really just talking to them about tools that are available to them. There's probably way more than you think. And just watching these patients walk, watching and identifying abnormal gait is really a critical piece. So again, prevention is better than the cure, risk assessment, making changes, and there's lots of ways to do that. And ultimately, just we can't forget that again, the statistics are staggering. 1 second someone falls, and every 20 minutes an older patient dies from a fall. If you think about the things that we talk about, the things that we go to conferences for, bunions, hammer toes, dermatological conditions, onychomycosis, plantar fasciitis, none of those things kill people. And yet we're going to spend millions of dollars this year getting continuing medical education on how to treat bunions, hammer toes, plantar fasciitis, and skin conditions, none of which typically kill many people. But this condition, abnormal gait, again, elderly individuals that have proprioceptive loss or that have neuropathy, these conditions combined kill people. And every 20 minutes, someone dies from a fall. Now, not all falls, of course, are related to lower extremity, but many are. And so, again, the costs are significant. So addressing this condition among our patients is critical. And we really have, I think, really good tools. And if we're aware of them, use them, I think we can really have an amazing opportunity to help these patients. Again, routine care is a part of this, exercise education, referrals to PT, OT, and then, of course, getting the patient into tools that address their mechanical problems, maybe their drop foot, their shuffling gait, whatever it may be. That's what we're here for. So screening patients is part of the steady CDC movement to reduce fall risk, and screening and assessing is important. And we are in a phenomenal position to be able to really be effective in assessing these patients. There are some exciting new tools to do that. There are ways to actually bill for services, bill for actually assessing patients in a thorough way, providing a risk assessment. Stay tuned about this program, about Safe Balance and its iterations, because there are going to be tools available pretty soon that would allow you to bill for a fall risk assessment using a particular physical therapy code. There is going to be a presentation in this year that's going to focus on this, but I don't want to get into this now, but just know that there are really good tools to do fall risk assessment. But I think the key to thing, as we think about the product itself, which we're going to dive into in a second, understanding that AFOs by themselves are effective, but when you use other interventions, including physical therapy, footwear, addressing foot pain, that's really the key. Multifactorial interventions are key to reducing fall risk. That has been demonstrated in so many studies. And so what are we doing? We're basically addressing risk factors. We're not putting stuff on patients for quote unquote fall prevention. We are putting devices and tools together to reduce risks, to address risk factors. So why do we use orthotics? To address specific biomechanical factors. And why are we using AFOs? To address specific risk factors. So I don't want to mince words when I say that we're not, quote unquote, putting a brace on someone for fall prevention. We're putting a brace on someone to address specific risk factors that lead to falls. And there's a big difference. And the more risk factors you have, the more likely you are to fall. And so risk factors range from 12% to 100% in this particular study. And if you have more than 3 risk factors, according to the study, you have a really high risk of falling up towards 100%. And so the more risk factors we can identify and address, we're going to reduce falls that way. So what are the major risk factors? Well, they just so happen to be among the key reasons why we would order an AFO anyway. Muscle weakness, gait deficits, balance deficits, arthritis, probably the top reasons why we order AFOs to begin with. So connecting AFOs to these risk factors, the top risk factors for falls, by the way, shouldn't be hard calculus for us. And even though there have been people who've questioned this and have tried to make it calculus, it's not calculus. It's really easy. I mean, why do we use AFOs to begin with? It's to address muscle weakness, to improve some mechanical problem in the ankle and foot. We're doing the same thing when addressing falls. And so that's why Life Balance as a program is effective, and that's why we should be promoting this as a program, not just a brace. And so that's what the Life and Balance program is. And as you can see, in our practice, we dispense and utilize these tools every day. There's not a day that goes by that I don't either have someone cast it or multiple people cast it or dispense. So it's a really satisfying thing to be part of helping people and providing good tools for them. And as you can see in this particular patient, this patient has a really flat foot, and I've created a medial flange for this patient with the brace that before the enhancements that you're going to learn about really didn't exist. A lot of AFOs, including the older versions of the MBB, just really honestly did not support or stabilize the arch as well as they do now. And so that's one of the features that you can see in this picture here. So what is the Life in Balance program about? It's about really risk modification, addressing risk factors. It's a multifactorial program. It's covered by most all insurances. And again, it's a protocol that works optimally if we're using PT, footwear, education, and the brace. So what is this about, and what are the key components? Well, it's really, again, as I mentioned, the things that we discussed, using assistive devices that address biomechanical risk factors, PT and OT, educating the patients, but it all starts with doing an assessment. And again, there are simple, easy ways to do an assessment. Watching the patient walk is an easy assessment tool, but there are others that again would be more effective, or that can basically add to your documentation that we'll talk about. And the way I look at this, the way I explain this to patients when I present to them, and by the way, that's going to be a whole nother lesson. I think next week or next time we speak, it's going to be using tools to be effective in presenting this to your patients. So stay tuned for that and join us for that, because I'll share with you a lot of pearls and tools to be effective in presenting this to patients. But one of the key ways is explaining it this way, and that is by utilizing this AFO, we're enhancing basically the root system of the patient. What is it that keeps a tree up when a storm comes? It's the root system. And by utilizing AFOs, we are enhancing the root system, stabilizing the base that should help keep the upper torso, the upper body more stable. This is one of the very simple tools that we advocate. It's the timed up and go test. Very simple to do. It's very simple to document. If the patients can do this in less than 12 seconds, or if it takes them longer than 12 seconds to do this, they're at high risk for falling. And then just observing gait. And like I said, slow, tentative pace, loss of balance, short strides, all of those things are key. Now, let's get into looking at the brace specifically. What should it do and what does it do? Well, number one, it's going to help improve proprioception, reduce postural sway, reduce fear of falling. Again, studies have demonstrated and proven all of these things. It's going to provide a lift for those with mild to moderate shuffling or drop foot. It's going to enhance joint mechanical receptors to detect disturbances, improve abnormal gait, reduce fatigue, and that's what we're trying to do. So one of the things we did with this brace to make it easier, to make it more effective, is basically enhance specifically the heel. We added a really unique intrinsic post to this to enhance postural stability. We took basically a brace that had two straps, made them one strap, and more importantly, we put a dramatic amount of more attention in the medial arch, so that we are not allowing collapse and that the patients aren't on like a prefab arch support, which I see on AFOs all the time. I look at a lot of AFOs on the market, not specifically for balance, but for across the board. And honestly, the arch looks prefab. It doesn't look like it matches the patient's arch height. And that's one thing that I talked to Jason about very early on, is that, if we're going to do this and make it right, the arch of the AFO needs to look and feel like it matches the patient's arch. And so we've done that, and I'm really pleased. And you look at these pictures, you don't see this type of arch in most AFOs like this. Again, adding the extrinsic post, you can see the extrinsic post in the bottom picture, how we created this enhanced, basically stabilizing rear foot presence that, again, maximizes the postural stability. And so that's kind of what we're aiming to do with this. And if you look at, again, the top picture, you can see it's not going to sit, when you set this on a table, it's not going to fall over. When you put this in a shoe, it needs to sit flat on the shoe so it can really utilize the heel counter to stabilize the patients. And so that's why it's really important you put this in a shoe with a good heel counter. And again, as I mentioned before, we've moved to an all leather product. And when you look at the picture to your left, we don't have that anymore. I'm really pleased to say that we don't have all the crap in the Velcro. We don't have, again, the tethering and the shredding. And so we've moved to a beautiful all leather design, in addition to all the other features that we mentioned, and again, these last longer. Patients are not coming back in and saying, why is it fraying? Again, a much better, well-made product. And so we also, of course, enhanced a lot of the comfort pieces, like the dorsal shin component. There's a nice thick layer of plastizote with the leather backing there to just enhance comfort at the shin. And again, it's one single strap. It's easy and it secures really well. It can be trimmed, again, per the patient's leg. And also, if the patients have edema, these can easily accommodate a compression device like, again, a Pharaoh or any kind of compression device like that. So, I look at some of the imitations that are out there, and if you look at them and you look at basically how they've knocked off previous versions of the more balanced brace, you look at the picture here and you just see basically what looks to me like a prefab device. And I can just tell you that when I see that knockoff, it just kind of turns my stomach, because that's not doing much for balance. Again, it's just simply not customized. So when you look at this, when you look at the fact that it really stabilizes the arch and it's got a post that keeps it upright, just a completely different kind of stability. And as you can see, that you still have the flexibility. In other words, you don't see this patient stiff ankled. It's flexible and allows the patients to have full range of motion dorsiflex wise. But if they do have a little bit of shuffling, it really helps pick up the feet, like this patient. And when you watch this patient, of course, normally has a really shuffling gait. But you can see when he walks, he's walking much more heel to toe because the brace is lifting his foot. And so, again, just an added benefit. And this is him walking. And so I literally took this picture today. You're going to see lots of things in this presentation that I actually did today in one day. This is a patient who has had this brace for, 6 months or more. And he just was so happy with it because it's the first thing he's ever had that really stabilized his foot and ankle. This is an elderly gentleman with a really cavus foot type. And what's beautiful about this is that the arch of the AFO is really supporting it. In other words, it's offloading the forefoot, it's stabilizing his gait. And as you can see, this looks truly customized. It's not a prefab looking AFO.
Are these helping you?
I want you just to listen to this patient.
That makes my feet feel more firm.
Yes, right. And do you feel like it helps your balance?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yes,
great.
it does.
Great. I know you're using. I'm going to go back at the beginning because I talked over the patient, but this is a patient I saw today.
Oh, I like to wear these. That makes my feet feel more firm.
Yes, right. And do you feel like it helps your balance?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yes,
great.
It does.
Great. So that was a patient. I'm going to stop here. That was a patient I saw today, just the previous patient, and again, she was wearing them in like most patients do, and was just telling me how much she appreciated it. And so she started talking about just how much it helped her be more steady. And so I said, wait a second, I'm giving a presentation. I just repeat what you just said. And so she did it. Now, this is a patient I saw last week. And once again, a patient, this is actually her just picking them up. This patient is pretty fragile. She's got a lot of medical problems, but she usually uses a walker. But I want you to listen to what she has to say.
Is putting these on.
So tell me how they feel. Tell me
they feel so good. So good. I can tell a big difference.
Okay, and tell me what you're feeling that's making it feel good.
I think it's the stabilizing.
Yeah.
I think it's just the walking that before it was almost like I wanted to
like roll your ankles,
yeah.
Or kind of roll.
Yeah, I didn't realize that my ankles were so weak.
Yeah.
But
well, when you stabilize them, it sure does make a difference.
Yeah, it's just because when you put them on, I thought, oh, this is something that's going to feel good, but they feel it's like when you put something.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
It's like you think, oh wow, now I'm set to go. I might be able to run a marathon.
So that was unsolicited, by the way. I was videoing the patient walk, and she just had that really amazing response. And but this is typical. I mean, of course, if you do a lot of AFOs, you're going to have patients who don't like them. You're going to have patients that maybe take some time to get used to them. But every once in a while, and more frequently than not, you'll have a patient when they first put these on that just say, wow, I can really tell a difference. And again, again, what are we doing? We're just stabilizing their ankles, stabilizing their foot. And for someone who has neuropathy, in this, which that patient previously did, I mean, it really can help improve their outcome, and the confidence that they have walking is pretty significantly improved as well. And again, as I've said before, really, I'm really proud of the improvements we've made, especially with the heel. Again, look at this picture here. This is an extended version that someone just needed a little bit more stability, so we just extended it up to the calf. But look at the arch. Look at how it's sitting. The heel post is phenomenal. And again, I just am really proud of these improvements. And I think that the balance brace is really is really as good as it's ever been. And so I enjoy dispensing these. I enjoy engaging the patients. And again, not all of them are going to sing your praises. There are going to be some that are cautious, some that are hesitant, and some that flatly just may not like it. And because they have to wear a particular type of shoe, or they have to go to the extra effort in the morning to put them on. But again, more than not, you're going to have patients that really are pleased and happy. It's easier than ever to take an impression for MBBs. This is basically how we do it. A lot of the times we just scan the patient and you push send and you're done. No plaster, no wet mess. You scan them and you're done. And again, it's not terribly difficult with some practice. I know that the Orthotica team can help your practice learn how to do this, and if you're not already doing it. If you do cast, make sure that you don't get the patient in an equinus, that you mark the malleoli, mark the areas that need to be accommodated. If the patients have a high arch and you want the AFO to capture their arch, make sure that you capture the arch in your cast. Obviously, make sure that the patients are, again, as in neutral as you can. But I like to make sure that the arch is captured well, and I mark all the malleoli as well. These devices, as most of you know, are PDAC approved. They have 3 codes, L1940, L2330, L2820. The reimbursement is very good. It always has been very good. When you look at making generating well over $2,200 per pair, you're spending $700 per pair. Again, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that these can be beneficial to your clinic, beneficial to you, to your bottom line, but more importantly, you're going to really enhance patients' lives and make them more confident. Going back to 2009, it's really interesting. We started with a leather device, and then went to mesh device, and then now we're back to a leather device. And as you can see, it has evolved tremendously from where we started, from where we're at now, and I'm really proud of that. And I'm really grateful for Jason, the Orthotica team, just taking the time to listen and allow me to make something that I thought that I could be really proud of. And again, it's very satisfying being involved in doing this for our patients. Shoes are critical for this. There's a whole lecture that I could do on this, but let me just highlight the fact that if the shoes need to be a good shoe, and all of you know what a good shoe is. And you need to be aware of the fact that if the patients don't have an easy to don shoe, something easy for them, lightweight, and there's a few examples of things that I like. I really like the Anodyne shoes. Some of their Propays work well, but I want a heel counter that's firm. I want a tongue that opens up and expands really easily so they can don the AFO well. And so these are two shoes that I think do really well for the balance brace. And I use a lot of both of these. Interventions that effectively preserve or enhance walking are paramount to improving quality of life and maintaining independence. And folks, that's what we're about. We're about just trying to make the best product, to not only just, again, this isn't about selling a product or selling a brace. It's about really addressing risk factors using a really comprehensive multifactorial program, which I think the Life and Balance program is. And again, putting a plan together that educates, that modifies these risk factors that we've discussed. And if we do a good job, we can not only reduce falling, but the fear of falling, which leads to inactivity, functional decline, and decreased quality of life. And again, for those of you that may be not looking at these patients, or maybe have been looking at them and not seeing the opportunities, it's so much better to do something rather than nothing. And when I'm talking to patients, it's not hard to convince them to do something. It's not hard to convince them that this is worth trying. And, if it doesn't work for you, Mrs. Jones, I'm going to do everything I can to make it work, but no one's going to make you wear it. No one's going to, chain you to this, but I'm going to help you get the right shoe, and I'm going to do everything I can to make it work. And that's how I present this to my patients. And we need to remind them that they shouldn't wait till they fall to get serious about falls. And again, just all it takes is one, and they can lose their independence forever. So I just really appreciate the time. I'm gonna end, and I'm gonna stop sharing and turn this back over to my friend Jason. And I hope we have some good questions.
Yeah, we do. Thanks, John. I think you were very consistent with the purpose of tonight's meeting, talking about the brace. Of course, I'm always interested to hear your perspective on the patient engagement side of this. That is actually our next program will be, I think it's July 11th, and that one is all about patient presentation, patient engagement. The words we use, the way we paint word pictures, either with patients or their family members, really opens the door to all the clinicians being able to help people. I'll start with just a couple of quick questions that I have, and then I'll try to keep my eye on the comment box for others. But just comparing the previous iteration of the brace and the one that you've been using now for the last year or so, has it changed the ease of donning and doffing and the ability to do that independent of maybe any family help or with the single strap closure?
Yeah, I do. I think that going back to an all leather device helps the brace slide in better, and it helps the patient slide their foot in. I think the mesh, although the purpose behind the mesh version, and you were involved in that process too, Jason, the purpose for that was just to really reduce weight. And that was again a noble effort. We tried to make it lightweight. We tried to make it something to just that was again addressing the weight issue. What we found was that over time these wore harder. They frayed easier, and so going back to an all other device just allows the patient with their sock to slide in better. It's just so they slide into the shoe better. And I do think that single strap instead of two straps really helps. And I also think that because we've become more sophisticated at identifying the right shoes for these patients, we've just become better at it. We're not trying to slide this into the patient's existing shoes. We're not trying to jam it into something it shouldn't jam into. But so I think the all leather component, to answer your question, the all leather component makes it easier to slide and don, I think. And also the single strap makes it easier. And it's just, so I think those two things alone make it easier to don and off. But really the key behind the ease of putting it on and off is the shoe. Yeah. And for me, with lots of practice, of course, as you and I, as you know, Jason, and for those that may not know, I provide footwear for every brace. So I provide footwear. There's not a patient who gets a pair of MBBs in my office that doesn't get a pair of shoes. And again, that's a whole different conversation as to how and why I do that. But my success rate is really high because I make sure it goes in the right shoe. For those that are making this brace or making any brace and trying to put it into the patient's existing shoe, it just your success rate and is going to be marginal at best. And so that's the key.
Great. I have a couple of questions. Perry has asked two reimbursement or compliance questions. And just, again, I don't want to dwell on that tonight. We'll see if we can answer them quickly because I think our August session is specifically all around compliance and documentation. So, but he asked two specific ones. Is neuropathy enough for medical necessity? And also asked separately what to look for and what to document to establish medical necessity.
Okay, well, first of all, neuropathy by itself would not be sufficient for utilization of an AFO. I have it in my documentation, but I will tell you that loss of proprioception is going to improve or just change their postural sway, abnormal gait. So what I equate that to from a billing standpoint is I basically ataxia, joint instability. Those two codes kind of correlate to loss of proprioception, neuropathy, and those types of things. It doesn't hurt to add those, but AFOs are not indicated for the sole reason of neuropathy. To answer the other question, really, muscle testing, observing abnormal gait, and then again identifying risk from the standpoint of again the timed up and go test. So if you want a really solid way of documenting medical necessity, document abnormal gait and be specific. Talk about dragging the feet, ataxia, abnormal walking, slow gait. Document that it took longer than 12 seconds for them to walk that distance in the timed up and go test, which is easy. It's actually in your compliance documents, Jason. I mean, it has a very simple little box you check, and you put the number of seconds it took. So if it's over 12 seconds, they immediately fall into a high risk category. And then just observing their gait and identifying either the presence of muscle weakness or abnormal gait. So those are the key quick summary factors that would qualify one for. And of course, we have to make sure we're documenting that these problems exist bilaterally because we're making bilateral AFOs.
It's a good segue to the next question. Marty asked whether or not he could use a single balance brace for a drop foot.
There's a lot to unpack there. Number one, I would have to see what the patients look like. If I have a patient with a flaccid drop foot from a stroke or something like that, the MBB in its current version is not the best. But what I do is I either extend it sometimes, I can add a dorsiflex assist, but I would have to see the patient. Now, what I will do, and Jason, you know this, if I have a patient that's had a stroke or that has a one-sided drop foot or they're really struggling, I may make a brace that has a dorsi assist that has a little bit of a different higher design, and then I may do an MBB on the other side just to stabilize because they're weak and unstable on that side. But they don't have a drop foot. But if so to answer the question, it depends on how much drop foot they have because there's wide variations. It depends on what their gait looks like. But is the MBB my go-to for just a drop foot? No. I can use a version of the MBB for a drop foot if I extend it and make it dorsi assist. But again, that may not be answering the question right. But no, it's not my go-to for a flaccid severe drop foot. It's my go-to for someone who has a shuffling gait that's dragging their feet on both sides and that needs a little bit of a lift from the brace being a posterior relief style.
Great. Thank you, John. Paul Bartu, who you and I have worked with in the past, asked a question regarding the change of leather from the mesh. Wanted to know whether or not the new leather design, does it tend to get hot for the patient with less ventilation? And just before you answer it from your experience as a clinician, I will tell you that most perforated top covers and mesh fabrics, when they're laminated to layers of foam and plastic, they're not really all that breathable. As far as next to the skin, it gives the appearance of ventilation, but because of the laminations next to that textile, there's really not much in the way of air passing through it. So I'm not sure what your experience has been with your patients down in Kentucky, John.
Well, interestingly enough, I've been through a summer and I've been through a winter and I'm in the process of going through another summer. I've not had that complaint. I recommend that they wear a white sock that goes up higher than the brace, of course. If heat becomes an issue, obviously a moisture wicking sock, which are ubiquitous now on the market, can be helpful. But because the only place it really attaches to is in the upper leg, and you're talking about, this much and the rest is open. I mean, so the rest is really open. So it's not a traditional like Arizona style brace that's completely encompassing the whole foot that can generate or trap heat. There's just too much open, really, I think, to generate much heat here. But that's a good question, though.
Yeah. Perry has asked a few more questions around notes and assessment. I'm going to, again, suggest that we push some of this discussion around documentation because we're doing the whole program on it. But I will throw out my email address to anyone who wants our AFO compliance documentation package, which does include sample chart notes and some pretty good forms that I think Perry would answer your question. And best email to request that from me would be jason@orthotica.com.
We'll make sure everyone gets that compliance documentation. I mean, it's Jason, is it on the website by chance?
It's the one thing I haven't put up on the website, but it's making it available, of course, to all the attendees of our programs. And Perry also asked about specific anodyne styles that you're recommending to house the balance braces.
Well, there's only a couple of versions that actually have Velcro. I do not like bungees for MBB. So a lot of shoe companies are making bungee shoes. I don't recommend it. Unless it's a bungee combo with a Velcro piece. But the design I showed in the picture, I don't have the specific style name, but it's called a sport jogger, I think. And it has just two Velcro straps. It's deep, it's light. But I mean, women and men are different. I mean, but I like the anodyne shoes because they hold up pretty well. They're very light and I can open up. So, but yeah, that's a good question. I think it's the sport jogger. But just look at their catalog. You want to look for something that's deep, the tongue opens up, and you don't want bungee shoestrings, Jason, I don't understand that. Maybe I'm just old, but bungee shoestrings just drive me nuts. I cut them out every day. But those don't work well for the MBB. You want to open up and be able to close with Velcro or lace. Lace works great if the patients can bend over and lace their shoes. But generally, I recommend something Velcro.
Great. And do you generally go one shoe size larger when you try?
Not. I mean, that's the thing. I can't even remember last time I did that because this is so sleek. I mean, it may look bulky, but it's really not bulky. The other thing I do, I'm careful about. I make sure. I mean, it oftentimes will go perfectly onto the existing shoe insole. So I sometimes just leave the insole in the shoe and have it sit flat. But if the insole is contoured like a Diabetic custom, you do not want the MBB sitting on top of a contoured heel. So make sure it's flat. And if there is space issues from depth, you may want to take the insole out and put basically a spacer, like a thin spacer. But generally, I do not go up a shoe size.
Okay. Stephen Ford has helped us out here. He's indicated that it's the anodyne 45 for women and the anodyne 46 for men.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. I need to actually put that in the slide so I can remember that. But that's great. Thank you for that information.
Yeah. So, John, if I can just maybe dig back into your presentation just for a moment, you kind of teased out something that we are working on together with another company called Safe Balance. And what Safe Balance represents is a really easy to use, very time efficient, but also profoundly important assessment tool, which is something that, you and I and others that have been involved with balance and fall risk mitigation have really been looking for many, many years, that can be easily brought into clinical environments like podiatry practices and PT and O&P practices. And we are working with this company to refine the tool slightly for the environment of a lower extremity provider. And we think we'll have that probably late summer is my best guess. And we'll, as soon as we do, we'll do a whole program on it. But what it really allows each of you to do, which may be lacking now, is to really document risk. And do it in a very objective way, in a way that's consistent with the CDC guidelines and a myriad of scientific papers that have been written on this subject. And, the assessment is the thing that's broadly missing in clinical practice. The reason why falls in elderly patient populations, it's such a public health crisis in this country, is because nobody, and I say nobody, of course, the people on this program are the exception, but most clinicians are not routinely screening people for modifiable risk factors. And so we've always really been on the lookout for tools that would help facilitate that in a unobtrusive way, something that could be done with staff predominantly, with some physician involvement for some minor parts of this. And if we could get reimbursed, all the better. And this Safe Balance tool, we think, has all those components. So we couldn't be more excited about what's coming later on this year. And if you treat large percentage of patients who are 65 and older, this is something that's just got to be part of their at least annual examinations. And the older 75 and 85-year-olds, it could be up to 2, 3, 4 times a year as their risk levels are increasing over time. And I just want to mention that since you touched on an earlier slide.
Yeah, how many times have we been asked over the last decade, can I get reimbursed for doing a fall risk assessment?
Yeah.
And we've always said, well, no. But through this system, you have a code that has been validated, by the way, by coding experts. It validated that demonstrates that allows you to bill for this time. And so I'm really excited about it to make it podiatry specific. So yeah, it's going to be a great tool.
Any other questions? And I welcome anybody if they want to grab that microphone on the lower left-hand corner. You don't just have to type your questions. You can grab it and ask, or continue to use the chat box for any additional questions. Don't be shy. All right. Well, you must have covered everything there.
Well, it's beautiful. Well, listen, I thank you again, Jason and Rich. Really great to be with you, and I hope everyone has a great night. I hope you can join us next month. Make it really valuable. And again, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good to be with you.
Thanks for watching. Give us a call at 888-895-1305 or schedule some time with us on orthotica.com.